Holy freaking nuts! It's actually crazy, guys. We had a brand new Link 4 monster revealed today. It's actually pretty wild. I'm not going to go as far to say that it's completely busted. It's very good, and I'm sure we will see it played in some situations, as it will be pretty much the best Link 4 you can go into going first. And I think a lot of decks will really like that, because decks that don't set up their own negations can now just go into a generic Link 4 that sets them up to disrupt their opponent, which is really cool. Anyway, let's jump into this. We have, what's her name? We have Summoned Divine Bow, Apollousa. I don't know. Apollo? I think Apollo. I think it's just like a female Apollo here. Version, it's a Link 4 Wind Fairy Link effect monster with question mark attack. Interesting. Its arrows are up, down, down left, and down right. So the same arrows as Yugioh Skull Dread, and some similarities there as well. So we'll see those in just a sec. You can only control one Summon Divine Bow, Apollousa. The original attack of this card becomes the number of monsters used as Link materials for this card times 800. Also, I didn't even say materials. That's actually incredibly important. So the materials for this card are 2 or more monsters with different names except tokens. So very, very generic. But as you see, as the effect I just read, its attack becomes the number of monsters used as material times 800. So if you only use 2 monsters to go into this, you're 1600 attack, and that's kind of tough. 3 or 4, you're probably looking for at least 3 monsters to go into this thing, because then you're looking at 2400, and that's pretty good. 32 even better, and then I feel like it's overextending if you end up putting 5 monsters into this thing. 4000 attack is nice, but you extended so much into it that if your opponent outs this, like, you just put everything into it. And then our third effect says if your opponent activates a monster effect, quick effect, you can activate this effect. This card loses exactly 800 attack, and if it does, negate that activation. Notice here that nowhere in this card text does it say that this effect is a hard once per turn. This is not even once per turn at all. So literally, as long as you have attack to sacrifice, you can negate anything. You just keep, well, not anything. You just keep negating monster effects. This seems busted, right? Take 3 monsters into this thing. You got a 2400 basic, at least at first, and you have up to 3 monster negates. Pretty good. But I will say it is pretty good. But it's not busted. I think it's good for the fact that it's a generic Link 4 that if you play a deck that doesn't necessarily, that you, like, sometimes you end up with awkward situations where you just have big bodies on board but not a negation, you do have a Link 4 you can go into, because I've seen decks that spam the board but they couldn't get into any, like, disruption cards, so they ended up just, like, linking into a Borreload, and you're just like, why would you even go into Borreload there? Borreload doesn't do anything. You Borreload quick effects to make my attack 500 less. That's it. That's all Borreload does. Whereas this thing is a legitimate disruption. So that is good. The parts where it is not as good, it doesn't destroy cards. You can negate a monster effect, but it doesn't destroy it. So your opponent's not technically minusing on any of these. Unless it's like a card a monster in the graveyard that, like, you're negating, or in hand or something. You know what I mean? Then it's like, okay, it's better. It's still solid. I mean, it's a monster negate. At the end of the day, you're allowed to negate 3 monster effects, which is good. It's just it doesn't remove, and also you got to realize the fact that, like, most of the time, I feel like we have to assume that most of the time this is going to be made with 3 materials, which means after 1 negate, this thing is 1600, in which Sky Strikers don't really have much trouble beating over. It doesn't negate spell and trap cards, so a deck like Sky Striker could literally just, like, search, like, Widow Anchor or Afterburn or something, and just out this immediately. Also, like, literally, if you just put 2 spells in grave, Ray into Kagari would be 1700. It can beat over this thing after you baited, like, the 1 negate and drop it down to 16. So, like, this thing definitely has weaknesses, but it's a very, very good card. I don't think it's busted. I think it's like, I think if they had made this third effect like negate, spell trap, or monster effect and destroy, then we're looking at something that's rough, because like some decks just lose to that straight up. But I think it did a good job balancing it. I'm sure we'll see situations where it is completely busted, that this card is not once per turn, and you end up in, like, we'll see dual replays of this card literally negating 3-4 monster effects in the same turn, and everybody thinks it's busted, but it's not. I think as long as you're playing a deck that, you know, doesn't just lose to multiple monster negations, you'll be fine. But yeah, guys, that's all I want to talk about. I thought this card was really, really cool. I really want this card. I think the artwork also is like phenomenal. Let me see if we can get, see the picture here isn't phenomenal here, but she's riding like a polar bear, shooting an arrow, and she looks cute as hell. So like, so good. I feel like it's just so good all around. Great design, artwork wise, great design, card design wise, I think, and I don't know, I can't wait to see what this card is used for. But guys, I'm going to end it off here. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you want to see more Yu-Gi-Oh! News stuff from me in the future, go ahead and sub on up to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.